Welcome to my channel. Enjoy the content and please like, comment, share and subscribe for more. The sun cast a golden hue over the campus of the University of Abuja, where dreams met with harsh realities. Among the thousands of students rushing through registration lines and lecture halls were 4 girls, each bearing their own burdens, each clinging to hope like a thin thread in a storm. There was Amora, tall, graceful, and ambitious. She came from a broken home in Enugu, where her mother sold vegetables in the market, and her father had vanished when she was only 9. Her dream was to become a lawyer, to speak for the voiceless like her mother who had suffered in silence for years. Then there was Zainab, petite and bright-eyed, the first daughter of a widowed tailor in Kano. She was studying medicine and believed education could break the chains of poverty wrapped tightly around her family's neck. Her 2 younger siblings looked up to her like a savior, their only hope. Chioma, fiery and bold, came from Owerri. Her father was a retired civil servant whose pension barely covered food. Her mother washed clothes for neighbors just to pay for Chioma's textbooks. She was studying mass communication, always dreaming of being a famous broadcaster and living a life of glamour she only saw on TV. Lastly, there was Ruth, soft-spoken and deeply religious. She hailed from a small village in Benue. Her parents, both peasant farmers, sold a piece of their land to pay her tuition. She was studying education and often reminded the others of the value of humility and hard work. They met during their first week on campus, searching for accommodation. By a twist of fate, or maybe destiny, they ended up renting a tiny 2-bedroom apartment just off campus. The walls were cracked, the tap water barely ran, and the electricity was unreliable. But it was theirs. They painted the walls, shared meals of gari and groundnut, and laughed under candlelight during blackouts. They became sisters, bound not by blood but by struggle. But Abuja wasn't kind to the poor. Every semester came with a fresh set of financial trials, handouts they couldn't afford, textbooks that cost more than a week's feeding budget, and class projects that demanded money they didn't have. Their parents had done their best by paying tuition and sending tiny allowances, but it was never enough. Soon, hunger became a shadow that followed them from lecture halls to their beds. It was Amora who first cracked. "I can't keep doing this," she said one evening, dropping her empty purse on the floor. "My shoes are torn. I can't even print assignments. Everyone thinks we're doing okay, but I feel like dying inside." Chioma sat up. "So what do we do? Continue suffering while the girls with sugar daddies flaunt their iPhones and Mercedes?" Zainab hesitated. "There's always another way. We could apply for scholarships. Scholarships that need connections we don't have." Amara snapped. "I'm tired of being invisible." They all fell into a heavy silence, broken only by the flickering of the candle. That night, something in their bond shifted. A week later, Amara came home in a sleek car, her nails freshly done, and her hair straightened like those influencers on Instagram. She brought food, real food. Jollof rice, fried chicken, fruit juice. The others stared in disbelief. "Where did you get all this?" Ruth asked cautiously. "I just met someone, a friend," Amora said, dismissing further questions. "Eat. You're always preaching, but even Jesus fed the hungry." Within a month, Chioma and Zainab followed. Zainab needed money to buy medical supplies for a class practical. Chioma wanted a new phone for her radio project. They rationalized it in whispers, "Just for now, just until things get better." Soon, their lives changed. They bought clothes, makeup, and weaves worth more than their monthly rent. They hosted parties, posed for pictures on social media with designer bags and captions like, "Thankful for my amazing life, face blowing a kiss." They began telling people that their parents lived abroad. Their course mates believed them, who wouldn't, seeing them arrive in Uber rides and flaunt iPhones and expensive perfumes. They walked the campus like queens, untouchable and admired. Only Ruth remained unchanged. "I don't judge you," she would say gently, "but this isn't the life we dreamed of. We're just taking control of our future," Amora replied one day, sipping wine. "Nobody will save us but us." Ruth prayed for them each night, her heart heavy with worry. But her voice was small amidst the sound of flashy lifestyles and fast money. Then came the day that shattered the illusion. The Department of Law at the University of Abuja was alive with chatter that Friday morning. Students gathered in groups, preparing for a mock trial assessment. Amora stood near the main building, dressed in a crisp white shirt and tight black skirt. Her sleek weave cascaded down her back, and her designer heels clicked confidently on the pavement. Her gold wristwatch glinted in the sun, her face flawless with expertly applied makeup. She looked like success, like someone whose life was already unfolding in luxury. Then came the two figures no one expected. A frail woman in a faded Ankara blouse and a man with sun-scorched skin and dusty slippers stepped timidly into the department lobby. They looked lost, out of place. Some students glanced curiously, some with pity. The woman clutched her handbag nervously and walked up to one of the students. "Please, we are looking for our daughter, Amarachukwu." Amora. The name caught a few ears. One of the students blinked, looked at the woman again, and said, "Amora. You mean Amora Okoye? You're her parents." The woman nodded quickly, hope lighting her eyes. "Yes. We came from Enugu to see her. It's been over a year." Murmurs spread like wildfire. Her parents. "They live abroad," she said. "They live in the US." Another student rushed to call Amora. Amora was outside taking selfies with her phone when she was summoned. She walked in with a radiant smile, until her eyes locked onto the two people standing in the middle of the room. Her smile froze. "Amarachukwu," her mother exclaimed joyfully and rushed toward her, arms open. Amora took a step back. Everyone went quiet. She blinked, forced a laugh, and said, "Oh, you must be my uncle and aunt from the village." Her mother froze mid-step. Her smile faded. "Uncle?" Her father looked stunned. "Oma, is that how you greet your parents?" Students gasped. Phones came out. Someone started recording. I'm sorry," Amora stuttered. "You must be mistaken. My parents are in America." Tears welled in her mother's eyes. "So we are nothing to you now?" "Please," Amora hissed, her voice now sharp, "don't come here again. I've told you not to show up like this. You embarrass me." Her mother's lips trembled. "We borrowed money to come and see you. Just to hold you. We haven't heard your voice in 6 months." Amora turned away, her cheeks burning. "I have to go. Please leave." The woman clutched her chest. "May God see your heart." Her father said nothing. His silence was the loudest. They left, slowly, with shoulders hunched and hearts broken. The students around stood speechless. Amora picked up her bag and walked out, fighting tears, humiliated but too proud to let it show. When she got home, she slammed the door and cried for hours, but not from regret, only from fear. Fear that her carefully built image had been cracked in front of those who once envied her. Ruth had watched the whole scene from a distance. That evening, she confronted her. They came all the way to see you? Your own parents? Amora's eyes were swollen. They don't understand. They make me look poor. They didn't make you poor, Amora. They gave you everything they could. They sacrificed everything. Amora scoffed bitterly. My mother is the reason I'm in this mess. She married a man with no ambition. She gave birth to me in poverty. What kind of love is that? If she had married a rich man, maybe my life would have been different. Ruth stared at her, heartbreaking. You're blaming your mother for your suffering? Yes. Amora shouted. Why didn't she choose better? The silence afterward was deafening. You've lost yourself, Amora, Ruth whispered. And I fear one day, you'll lose more than just your name. Amora didn't reply. But Ruth's words would soon become prophecy. The rainy season had just begun. Abuja's skies were dark with clouds that threatened downpours at any moment. Thunder roared faintly in the distance as Chioma dressed up for what she called a soft Friday night link-up. She looked radiant, her face glowing with freshly done makeup, her outfit tight enough to turn heads. The others were used to it by now. She was always the one with the boldest clothes and the loudest laughter. Who's the guy this time? Zainab asked with a teasing grin. Chioma winked. One sweet boy with a Toyota Venza. Said he wants me to meet his uncle tonight. The man's a big chief or something. Ruth looked up from the corner where she was reading her Bible. Don't go. I feel something is wrong. Chioma laughed. I beg, Ruth, stop sounding like my village pastor. I'll be fine. But Ruth's heart was heavy. She watched her friend leave with unease bubbling in her chest. The hours stretched long that night. Rain began to pour, and the wind howled outside. Around midnight, the apartment door burst open. It was Chioma. Only it wasn't the Chioma they knew. She staggered in, drenched and barefoot. Her clothes were torn at the hem, her makeup smeared like ash across her face. Her eyes were wide with horror, her hands shaking. She collapsed at the door, and the girls rushed to her. Chioma. What happened? Zainab pulled her up, and they sat her down. Her breathing was ragged, her skin clammy. Ruth grabbed a towel. Talk to us. Chioma tried to speak but her voice cracked. Finally, with a trembling breath, she said, it wasn't his uncle. What do you mean? It was a shrine. He took me to a house in the outskirts, said his uncle lived there. But when we entered, the air, it changed. It smelled of blood and something rotten. Then this old man came out, painted in chalk and red beads. He touched my forehead, and I blacked out. The girls looked at each other, horror dawning. When I woke up, I was lying on a mat, dressed in white. There was a calabash on my head. They were chanting, saying something about beauty for wealth, life for long life. I couldn't scream. I couldn't move. I just watched. Zainab gasped. Jesus. He poured something on my body. I felt my soul leave me. Then I don't remember anything until I found myself outside, by the roadside. Tears streamed down her face. Her voice was breaking. I think they used me. For something. I don't feel the same. My body, it's not mine anymore. Ruth held her close, praying under her breath. Amora and Zainab stood frozen, helpless and afraid. Then Chioma started coughing. It was deep, violent. She clutched her stomach and bent over. And then it happened. Blood, thick, dark, and terrifying, poured from her mouth. They screamed. Ruth tried to hold her, but it was too late. Chioma looked at them, her eyes pleading. I didn't know. I just wanted to eat. Her voice faded as her body went limp. She died in Ruth's arms. The rain outside intensified. Thunder clapped like an angry god. They buried her quietly, far from campus, with no official report. Her family was too poor to ask questions. No one dared speak of what truly happened. Her name was whispered for a while on campus, then forgotten. But the scars remained on the girls' souls. After Chioma's death, a heavy silence fell over the apartment. The air felt different, heavier, colder. The girls no longer laughed as loudly. Zainab stopped wearing makeup. Amora drank more than usual. And Ruth spent more time in prayer, her Bible always open, her voice constantly whispering to the heavens. But some things, once set in motion, cannot be stopped. It started with a fever. Zainab came back from school one afternoon, visibly weak and shivering. Her eyes were dull, her lips cracked. Ruth offered her soup, but she barely touched it. It's just malaria, Zainab said with a tired smile. I'll be fine. But she wasn't. The fever worsened. Her skin became blotchy, and sores began appearing under her arms and thighs. Amora took her to the school clinic, but the test showed nothing unusual. The nurses gave her painkillers and told her to rest. But each day, her condition deteriorated. Her body grew thinner. Her voice fainter. At night, she coughed so hard she couldn't sleep. Sometimes, she'd wake up screaming, clutching her chest. Then came the bleeding. Nosebleeds at first, then from her ears. One morning, she woke up and found her bedsheet soaked in blood. They rushed her to a private hospital. The doctor ran tests, but the results only deepened the mystery. Her blood is reacting strangely, he said. It looks like something is attacking her organs. We've never seen anything like it. Is it HIV? Amora asked, afraid. The doctor shook his head. No. Something worse. It's as if her body is shutting down from the inside. Ruth wept by her bedside, holding her hand as Zainab trembled with pain. I didn't mean to go this far, Zainab whispered one evening. I only wanted to help my family. My siblings, they needed me. Ruth kissed her forehead. God still hears you. Zainab smiled weakly. Do you think he can forgive me? Yes. He already has. But Zainab never went home again. She died 3 days later, silent, skeletal, and surrounded by her broken dreams. Her body was sent back to Kano in a wooden box. Her mother called Ruth and wept uncontrollably. She was my hope, my son, she sobbed. Why did the world take her from me? Ruth couldn't answer. Back in Abuja, Amora stopped going to class. The luxury bags, the perfumes, the wigs, they all lost their shine. Guilt clung to her like her shadow. She drank more, cried more. Some nights, Ruth would hear her talking to herself, begging someone unseen for forgiveness. The once lively apartment now echoed with grief. 2 out of 4 sisters had fallen, their laughter now ghosts in the walls. And yet, the darkness was not done. Amora's beauty had once opened doors, now it concealed the ruin within her. Her eyes had grown hollow, her smile mechanical. The spark that once lit her ambition had dimmed beneath layers of guilt and grief. But the world kept moving, and Amora kept pretending. It was during her final year that she met Honorable Danjuma, a wealthy, middle-aged politician with a deep pocket and a taste for young, desperate women. He promised her a life she never thought possible again: cars, luxury, comfort. He treated her like a trophy, showering her with money and attention. After so much death and shame, she clung to his affection like a lifeline. It felt like redemption until she missed her period. At first, she smiled. The idea of becoming a politician's wife offered hope, even pride. She imagined herself rising above her past, carrying her unborn child into a new chapter where struggle was a distant memory. She told Danjuma about the pregnancy with a soft laugh and trembling voice, expecting joy. Instead, silence. Then came the warning. "My wife must never know," he said coldly. "She is not someone you can cross." Amora laughed nervously. "But I thought..." He cut her off. "You're not my wife. You were a secret. And you will remain a secret." A week later, Danjuma's wife called. "I know who you are," her voice hissed through the phone like venom. "You think you can steal what I built? You carry that child, and I will bury you and everyone you love." Amora froze. The line went dead. She didn't sleep for 3 nights. She ignored Ruth's concerned glances, drowned her fear in wine, and sat in silence, thinking of what to do. The shadows of Chioma and Zainab lingered in every room. She saw them in her dreams, felt them in the quiet. She wanted a fresh start, but this wasn't how. 2 weeks later, she went for the abortion. It was rushed, done in a backroom clinic where painkillers were optional and hygiene questionable. The moment it was over, she felt something shift, deep, final, permanent. The bleeding didn't stop. Ruth found her in the bathroom that night, pale and curled on the floor, blood pooled beneath her. They rushed her to the hospital, and the news was swift and cruel. Her womb was damaged beyond repair. "You'll never conceive again," the doctor said gently. Amora stared blankly at the ceiling, her eyes dry, her soul numb. She had sold everything for a life she would never have. Years later, after NYSC, she married a kind man, a civil engineer with a calm heart and honest hands. He loved her deeply, but love could not fill the silence of an empty womb. After 4 years of waiting, he married another woman who bore him children. Amora stayed. She smiled through family gatherings and cooed over other people's babies. But at night, she cried into her pillow, whispering apologies to the child she never met. She often thought of her parents, how she had disowned them in public, thrown away their love like scraps. She wrote them a letter once, but never sent it. The shame was too loud. One day, she walked into their village unannounced. Her mother wept and embraced her without words. Her father, older now and fragile, simply nodded. But healing didn't come easily. Some wounds refused to close. She visited Chioma and Zainab's graves, placed white flowers, and whispered prayers no one heard. Back in Abuja, life went on. And Ruth, quiet, steadfast Ruth, graduated with distinction. She had stayed the course, resisting every temptation that had swallowed her friends. She completed her NYSC in Lagos, and there she met David, a young pastor with a warm smile and a heart that matched hers. They married in a small church surrounded by genuine friends, not borrowed wealth. In time, Ruth gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl. Her parents came with baskets of yam and palm wine, singing in their native tongue. She cried that day, not from sadness, but from gratitude. She never forgot her sisters. She told their stories in women's conferences and youth programs, not to shame them, but to warn others. She spoke of beauty turned to bargaining chips, of ambition lost in lust, of lives traded for things that never lasted. One night, years later, Amara visited her quietly, holding a small gift, embroidered clothes for the twins. Ruth hugged her long and hard. Neither spoke of the past. There was no need. Sometimes, surviving was the only miracle. And sometimes, the ones who walked away from the fire carried the memory of the flames not as shame, but as purpose.